Hi, my name is Keith Alkelt. I'm a program assistant with Aurora History Museum. Welcome to our Adult Speakers Bureau. Today we're going to be talking about the history of the Aurora Fox Theater. Thanks for joining me. Our story begins right after World War II, when Aurora was a bustling town of about 10,000 people. Many military families had moved to Aurora during the war because of those three military bases nearby, Fitzsimmons, Lowry, and Lowry II, which we now call Buckley. Entertainment, shopping, and other amenities were in great demand. The only theater in Aurora at this time was on the Fitzsimmons Army Base, which we'd now call Anschutz Medical Center, and it wasn't open to the public, only military personnel. There had been earlier theaters in Aurora. In 1912, the local funeral parlor owner, Mr. Sill, announced the opening of Aurora's first theater, the Star Theater, a moving picture show amusement palace. It only lasted 6 months due to problems with equipment. And the Hollywood Theater opened in 1924, but it lasted a short time as well due to challenges in getting first-run movies and the costs of operation. Well, by 1946, local officials, as well as military officials, thought there was a great need for a new theater in Aurora. Since the Fitzsimmons Theater wasn't open to civilians, most people who lived in Aurora had to go into Denver to see a movie. In addition, the Fitz Theater was not large enough to meet the needs of the larger functions of the base. So, with the help of Lieutenant Colonel Horner Preston, judge advocate for the Army and a longtime supporter of Aurora, Washington, D.C. released military supplies to be used for construction of a theater. And exactly what supplies did they release? A Quonset hut. Surprisingly, these military buildings were getting a lot of use at the time. Quonset huts were being used for all kinds of construction. There are Quonset hut theaters scattered around the country. In fact, there were at least 88 of these theaters opened following World War II. As of recently, only 18 of them still operate as a theater. On the screen here we have the Roxy in Victoria, Canada, the Rio in Monterey, California, and the Royal in St. Petersburg, Florida. So they had the materials, but now what? This was just a simple Quonset hut and they needed an architect to make it look like a theater. The Fox was one of the first of these Quonset hut theaters built in the country, and it was definitely the first of its type in the Rocky Mountain region. This gentleman here is Charles Strong. He's a local architect hired to design the entry and interior of the theater. Mr. Strong first came to Colorado in 1922 with his wife, who was suffering from tuberculosis. By 1935, he had become a prominent architect, well known in the Denver area. Strong had done a lot of work on the design and construction of row apartment buildings on Sherman Street in downtown Denver. This area is known as Poets Row because each apartment is named for a prominent poet or author. These buildings, along with many others that Strong worked on, were in an Art Deco or Art Moderne style, the same as the Aurora Fox Theater. By 1945, Charles Strong had become known for working with theater groups to design theaters. This is how the Fox Intermountain Amusement Corporation learned of his work. Strong was designed in building a number of theaters in the state and region, including the Lamar Theater in Lamar, Colorado, the remodeled Golden Theater, and the Midwest Theater in Scottsbluff, Nebraska. The Quonset hut is visible in Strong's design, but he also added a spectacular 61-foot marquee to the front of the theater. The tip of this marquee was actually level with the Daniels and Fisher Tower in downtown Denver. The theater space here accommodated up to 670 people. The exterior boasted coral Carrara glass, which is no longer manufactured, to contrast the sweeping lines of the turquoise marquee. The new theater also had the most modern sound and projection equipment available, the latest in automatic heating and cooling, plus germicidal lamps to purify the air. The germicidal lamps were a special feature in the 1940s since polio was still a dreaded issue. The interior of the theater was designed with a rich Art Deco decor of off-white and light blue, with plush wine-colored velvet couches in the lobby. Detailed artwork was painted on the wall and ceiling inside the auditorium. This was a prominent feature in many of Strong's designs. The gala opening of the Aurora Fox was held on October 30th, 1946. Admission was 55 cents for adults, 35 cents for military personnel, and only 9 cents for children under 13. The festivities began with a parade led by the William Smith High School Band and followed by the Aurora Volunteer Fire Department. A large crowd gathered to view a fireworks display. The first movie shown in the Fox was Claudia and David, starring Robert Young and Dorothy McQuire. Following the opening of the theater, the area between Elmira and Hanover Streets became known as the Miracle Mile because of the increase in businesses and property development spurred on by the opening of the Fox. Department stores went in, new drugstores opened, jewelry stores, restaurants, and other facilities began to pop up in the area. This is the curtain that covered the screen at the Fox Theater. As you can see, it's covered with advertising from local businesses. The theater offered job opportunities for high school students and young people in the area. They worked the concession stand selling penny candy and popcorn or taking tickets. Business was good for the Fox Theater until the late 60s and early 70s. At this time, many more modern theaters were being built around Aurora and the Denver area. The Fox went into a period of decline in the 1970s. And then disaster. On November 18, 1981, a major fire broke out in the trees on the west side of the building. It caused major damage to the theater. Most of this damage was in the auditorium. The theater was threatened with demolition. A group of interested community members, with the support of the Downtown Aurora Business Association, approached local neighborhood associations and art groups to determine the feasibility of saving the Fox. Their idea was to create a visual and performing arts center. The Aurora Arts and Humanities Council, the City of Aurora Performing Arts Group, the Aurora Arts Club, and the Aurora Rehabilitation Authority approached the City Council in June of 1982 with a plan for the city to purchase the building and renovate it. These groups were challenged to raise enough money in private funds and seek enough grants to cover half the costs. The City of Aurora then promised to match those funds and pay for the rest of the project. A total of $343,000 was raised, along with $127,000 worth of volunteer time. The city contributed the remaining money, approximately $430,000. In 1983, the city purchased the building, and renovations began. On March 8th and 9th, 1985, following about 2 years of construction, the Aurora Fox Art Center held a grand opening. The first production in the newly renovated theater was the play Harvey by Mary Chase. Additional festivities were offered throughout the month. Since reopening, the Fox has offered almost 40 years of successful seasons, filled with innovative and cutting-edge productions. It's now considered one of the premier theaters in the metro area. You can visit their website for more information at aurorafoxartscenter.org. There you can find out about their current shows. Thanks for coming with me on this history of the Aurora Fox Theater, brought to you by the Aurora History Museum.